What are some of the best beefs in college football? Because Drake and Kendrick right now, for those of y'all that are keeping tabs on the hip-hop world, sending shots back and forth, right? We got Kendrick with like a 6-minute diss track that dropped yesterday, talking about all kinds of things. Drake went out and got AI Tupac and AI Snoop Dogg and then put his own verse on there. Like, very clearly are not friends, very clearly have USDA-approved sirloin beef. Got me thinking, man, what are some of the best beefs when it comes to college football? Here's the criteria that this is important. It's not about rivalries. Like, you could put Auburn, Alabama on here, and yeah, of course they have beef. You could put Ohio State, Michigan on here. Obviously, they are not friends. But I'm talking like petty, just we don't like you kind of vibes. Got a couple of really good responses from y'all. Jimbo and Saban feels like one of the most recent examples of some of the best beef we've had in college football. We'll relive that together right now. Nick Saban, I believe, did not know he was being recorded at this point in time. Jumps on the mic and is talking about NIL and is talking about how it's impacting recruiting and says we lost recruiting last year, Texas A&M, speaking of their 2022 class, and he says A&M bought every one of their players. And Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M head coach at the time, in blue jeans, goes to the podium and just lays into Nick Saban, says go check on him, go see how he does things. Go see what he's doing behind closed doors, see if he does everything above board. Says that's despicable. It's a shame we even have to do this. These kids and their families, like it got messy real quick, and it was a college football headline in every single sense of the word. They eventually, I think, ended up being more than fine and shook hands, and I think they were, boys again. But that beef that we had for that week or so stretch, that 24-hour stretch even, that was intense, and we were all circling that day where A&M and Alabama would face off on the field once again. Oklahoma and USC, this is a beef that has stood the test of time for the better part of the last several years. And it's not so much between, like, the teams as much. It's not so much between head coaches. It is fan base driven in my mind because Lincoln Riley goes on record after they lose to Oklahoma State when he's the head coach at Oklahoma. And he's asked point blank, are you going to be the head coach at LSU? He says, no, I will not be the next head coach at LSU. Which, of course, allowed everybody and their mama to believe, all right, so Lincoln Riley is staying at Oklahoma. Well, not more than 48 hours later, I think it was 24 hours later, actually, it gets announced that Lincoln Riley is leaving for USC. So Oklahoma fans, one, just felt like there wasn't a ton of honesty there, probably how they felt. Two, just the fact that it was USC, for the folks in Norman, felt some kind of way. Because USC, from an archetype standpoint, is Hollywood, it's sunshine, it's palm trees, it's eating kale. Like, it's a lot of things that the Oklahoma fan base just does not necessarily identify with. And so USC fans now have had this back and forth with Oklahoma. Colin Cowherd has very much so played a part in that, talking about what Oklahoma won't be compared to what USC will be. So those fan bases going back and forth, stemming from this Lincoln Riley exit from Oklahoma, has made for a very intense timeline on your Twitter sphere. If you tweet something about USC, Oklahoma's in your mentions. You tweet something about Oklahoma, USC in your mentions. It's very awkward because they don't really play each other outside of that national title game several years ago. So the beef there is intriguing, but it's very intense nonetheless. One of the, in my opinion, most intense beefs in college football. Here's an even more recent one. This is one that we got a lot of responses to. Florida State versus the College Football Playoff Committee. You don't need me to relive it, but we will just a little bit. Florida State does not make the College Football Playoff, even though they won all their games and they were the ACC champions. College Football Playoff says, well, your quarterback, one of your best players, arguably your best player, got hurt. We don't necessarily perceive you to be one of the 4 best teams. So Florida State is saying, well, we won all our games. We checked all the criteria. Why are we not in the dance? The College Football Playoff is saying, well, we don't view you the same as we did previously. Now, my big takeaway with this whole thing was like, if I'm Florida State, I'm like, okay, you can feel how you want to feel about us, but give us a heads up. Give us a little bit of something we can look at and know that we're not going to make the College Football Playoff and rate us accordingly. Because I think Florida State was like 4 or 5 all the way up until that final ranking. Like, they had a fair amount of confidence, I have to believe, based on what the committee was saying about them in real time, that, okay, we're going to make the committee, or we're going to make that committee's Final Four, rather. If I'm a Florida State fan, I'm like, drop us to 8, drop us to 7 after that injury. Don't tell us we're a top 4, top 5 team and we have a chance to make it if we know without a shadow of a doubt that's not going to meet the criteria for what we are going forward here. So the College Football Playoff Committee, obviously, and the Florida State are not friends by way of the College Football Playoff rankings being aired on ESPN. ESPN's kind of caught some strays from that, but beef nonetheless. Does anybody win with beef? Only when there's diss tracks being dropped and you're on the outside looking in, but regardless, beef nonetheless. Last one I want to get to here. This one is a little bit funny because it's very one-sided, similar to Florida State and the College Football Playoff Committee. Lane Kiffin and Tennessee, make no mistake, man, they got beef. They got very, very real beef because Lane Kiffin takes the job at Tennessee, the youngest head coach in Division I, all of 33 years old. Tennessee is 5-7 the year before. He takes the podium, and he's talking about what they're going to do long-term in Knoxville, as any good head coach would. Lane Kiffin went so far to say, I can't wait to sing Rocky Top all night long after we beat Florida. And that was Tim Tebow's Florida, and that didn't happen. But nonetheless, it was a good game. He left Tennessee after 1 year. They go 7-6 his first year, almost beat Alabama, have a 2-win improvement from the year before. He leaves the Tennessee job after 1 year in the middle of the night for the USC job. And I think the USC brand in general just kind of rubs folks in SEC country the wrong way because of what I said about Oklahoma. They think it's Hollywood. They think it's palm trees. They think it's eating kale, as I just mentioned, things that the good folks in Knoxville wouldn't say embodies what they do out there in Knoxville. Students rioted. There was a real deal uproar from Lane Kiffin leaving for Tennessee, or leaving Tennessee for the USC job. And we know that there was no love lost because when Ole Miss went and played Tennessee, there were folks, I should have recapped that a little bit better. When Ole Miss from Lane Kiffin, when Lane Kiffin's coaching Ole Miss and they go play Tennessee, folks are hurling projectiles at Lane Kiffin. They are throwing golf balls. A golf ball could do some damage now if you hit them in the right spot. We're throwing mustard bottles. We're throwing anything and everything we can towards the end of the game at Lane Kiffin. Don't think there's any love lost out there in Knoxville for Lane Kiffin. I don't know how Lane Kiffin feels about Tennessee, but promise you, the folks in Knoxville are not welcoming Lane back anytime soon. Beef, beef, beef. So Jimbo and Saban, Oklahoma and USC as fan bases, Florida State and the College Football Playoff Committee, Lane Kiffin and Tennessee, they don't get along. And here's the thing, with us as consumers of this sport, and just to be 100% transparent, someone that talks about this sport every single day of the year, I'm here for the stories. I'm here for the crazy. I'm here for the passion. I'm here for the madness that makes college football the best sport on the face of the planet. And we're glad you're here for it too. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.